right.
Rolling, rolling. Yeah. Oh, shit.
Welcome to Dustin's Vinyl. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Dustin Chafin.
Yeah. My goodness. I want to mosh right now. That's how good that was. And I don't have any people here. I'm just going to mosh with my dog. I'm just going to like bump into my dog, Lacey. I think Lacey could take it. She's she's a rough dog. She could take it. She's fights rough. A lot. Rough. Get it? Rough. Anthony always appreciates my horrible puns, and that's why you're in my life, because you get a good pun. If you don't appreciate puns, you do. You got some good puns doing your stand up. That's why I kind of took you under my wing. You were doing a show and you had these hilarious puns, and I was like, I appreciate a good pun. How's it going, man? What's the Anthony Kapfer life like? Are you just crushing it? Doing music?
Just killing it. I just quit a band.
Okay.
I was playing drums for a band and then I quit. So now I'm going solo.
That's perfect for the theme today.
That's perfect. Yeah. It's true though. I was playing with this band and me and the bass player. Now we're gonna do our own thing. He's gonna play for my solo project.
Dude, first of all, it's like that's how 21 Pilots got started. It was like they were a 4-piece band.
Yeah.
And then two guys like didn't like whether they were going musically or whatever was happening in the band, and then they just did it by themselves, just the two of them, and they're gigantic. So yeah, it's like
I'm hoping that'll be us.
Maybe. Yeah. Are you?
I'll have to dye the mustache. I don't know if I could keep it gray and still be famous, but.
What are you talking about? You don't think so? Look at Kenny Rogers. He didn't get famous until he had a gray beard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at Michael McDonald.
Look at George Carlin.
That's true.
Yeah. Now I'm definitely going to dye my beard. If that's what you think, really? I can't get famous with a gray beard? God,
no,
are we dead?
Like in a band, I'm saying.
You got to be in a band to be great. Nobody cares.
I don't know. It's just weird because I was thinking about in the mid to late 90s when REM was still putting out stuff, they were like in their mid to late 30s and everybody was like talking about how they were pretty much done, even though I thought they did some great stuff. But it's interesting that you get to be in your mid to late 30s and everyone's like, all right, but can you still rock? Can you still be in a rock band? I feel like I'm writing the best stuff I've ever written, but I guess a lot of people lose it,
I don't agree with that at all. I think their later stuff is fantastic.
Yeah,
End of the World. Come on, that's their later stuff, right?
That was
Who doesn't like that
Document.
song?
That was Document. That was in the 80s. But they did Monster in the 90s, like 94. Like What's the Frequency, Kenneth, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of reggae sometimes, like Burning Spear is one of my favorite reggae artists. And that guy's like 100. So,
Yeah. That's the thing with blues musicians, jazz, all that kind of stuff. As you get older, you get better. But with rock and roll, it's like you got to be 22, otherwise.
I don't believe that. That's not true. The Stones' early stuff isn't anywhere close to their later stuff. It's like, way better when they got older. When they're in their 40s, 50s.
Yeah, that was their best stuff. Yeah, Start Me Up.
Yeah.
Start Me Up's a great tune.
You have to agree with me, or I'm just going to hang myself because I'm too old to be doing art. It's like, I don't know. We'll bring in our co-host and see what he thinks.
Let's see what he thinks.
But I don't know. I think it's a tough call because I think obviously it is weird though that like a blues guy would be more respected, as he gets older.
Yeah.
But what about punk? You think that's a young man's game?
Oh yeah, punk even more than any other kind of rock and roll, I think.
Really? Because I think Danzig did some interesting things. Like the older he got, I thought Henry Rollins did interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But then now he doesn't play music anymore. He aged out of it.
I think he has a successful acting career.
That's true, and he's doing his spoken word tours and all that.
Yeah, I don't think aged out is the way to phrase it. I think he's gone on to other things.
Yeah, okay, maybe that. I saw him live. I guess it was probably 20 years ago at this point, but I saw him at one of the Warped tours, the Rollins band. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see him. He still had it then. He was a little older, middle-aged, I guess, What is he now, 60?
I don't know. Probably. Yeah, I don't know. You're brutal, though. You're brutal.
That's what I think of.
You do whatever you want, man. If you want to be punk rock at 60, be punk rock at 60. Don't listen to this guy. You don't know what he's talking about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in our other co-host. Very funny, very informative, the Kurt Loder of the show, Mr. Adam Holtz, everybody.
Hey.
What do you think, Adam? Can people still produce good music in their later days?
I think so. I mean, look at Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's still producing pretty good music.
Right.
Yeah, Anthony.
All right. You're right.
Bob
and
Dylan.
Also Radiohead.
Yeah.
Right?
Look at Tom York and Johnny Greenwood with the smile.
Don't get Adam started on Radiohead.
But there's also somebody else that me and Anthony have been talking about recently, LCD Sound System, James Murphy. I mean, he really didn't start LCD until he was in his 30s. And I mean, look, he's still, he's in his late 40s, early 50s now. I think maybe early 50s. He's still producing some of the best music he's done right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And he's been gray for most of it.
Yeah.
That gray beard.
Dying it this week. Going back. I can't take it. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing because I feel like Johnny Cash, some of his best music, wearing this was that later stuff with Rick Rubin, So it was like he had 4 albums. Those last 4 albums, the American recordings, are phenomenal. And I like a lot of the early stuff. It's kind of rockabilly and fun, and it's taken a turn in country that nobody had ever taken before. But it's that later stuff is soulful and I don't know. His voice it's not a springy Johnny Cash voice, but it's kind of more of a growl of a man who's lived a life. But I like that. I think I want an artist that's lived,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good stuff. I don't know. So I don't agree with you, Anthony, because we're all getting older, and I hope to God we all produce art as we get older. So
I hope so.
What are you gonna tap out? What do you got? 2 years left? You just gotta get.
No.
You gotta get it all out. What are you, 38? You gotta get it all out.
38 now. I can't do anything else, so I'm hoping that it's not too late to still be making art.
Well, here I got something.
Go, please.
Oh, I actually got a meme that fits this right here. It's gonna be. There we go. Life of an artist. You start out as a gifted kid, burned out disappointment, and then an old weirdo with a home studio.
Oh my God, that's what I got. Look, check out my home. Oh, what?
It's you as a magician. There we go.
I got a home studio. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly, Anthony. You've aged out, not us. You have. You've gotten it. You're the cliche. I just have a corner. Yeah. Yeah, but that's an interesting topic. It's an interesting topic because I feel like, I don't know. It's like when you've lived a life, it's like sometimes you bring more to the table, I think. And as a comedian, it's like, I feel like, all my friends who are successful got more interesting in their 40s, and it's like, I feel like that's when they got their stride and stuff. Chappelle's got to be 40 at this point. It's like, all those guys, I don't know, they get a little more interesting. George Carlin, his stuff, we were talking about that, but right. I mean, I saw his last 3 specials and they were all phenomenal, and it was later years, So, and his early stuff is is kind of corny. It's like hippy dippy weatherman, and it's like silly. Yeah, it's silly stuff.
My favorite Carlin stuff is like from the '90s on.
Yeah, and he's
right up until the last special is one of the best.
Yeah, he's late 60s, 70s. Yeah, it's like you know, it's about just looking out for the old guys. I think that's what you got to do. Look out for the old guys. All right. So speaking of old guys, here's my random pull. Neil Diamond. This guy's got to be 90. How old is he? 80, 70, something? I don't know.
Is he still alive?
Neil. Yeah, he's alive, dude. He's out there pumping out music. He's got more dates than all of us put together. Is he still alive? Get out of here. Adam, is he still alive?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to see. He's 81 years old.
81! Do you have any dates? I hope he has some dates. Let's hope to God he has some tour dates. Is he any tour dates?
Let's see.
This is a great album.
Which one? What's
tour? Let's see.
What's on that one?
Touching
no
you.
Tour dates.
Touching me. Okay, he's got to be at a nursing home or something. Touching you.
Oh.
Touching me. Sweet Caroline. Is that the same song?
I think that is. I was reading that he wrote that song about a photo of like a kid. Is that true?
No. Stop tarnishing the Jewish Elvis, Neil Diamond. Stop it. He's an upstanding man. He did not touch children. See how rumors get started? You're going to cancel him, and he's 80. You're going to cancel Neil Diamond at 80 years old. Ah.
That's what I read. I don't know.
You can't read. Okay.
You're right. It's a picture book.
Pop-up book. It was a Neil Diamond pop-up book. Anyway, just thought I would pull this. Kind of fun. I like kitschy stuff, Sometimes this is definitely one of those dollar bins, $1.99. I think I got this one. So just pulled it. Whatever. You got anything, Ant?
Yeah, I got this.
What do you got?
John Coltrane.
Way to trump me. Yeah.
One of my favorite jazz albums, and also I picked it specifically for today's show, but
you went solo.
Oh no, just because of the album cover, which I'll talk about later. But but yeah, I love some Coltrane.
Yeah. I was watching. I need to know names here before I start trying to talk about conversations. But maybe Adam knows. Adam, who's the trumpet player? He's a current trumpet player now. He's like very famous.
Was it New Orleans trumpet player?
Yeah, but he's like a Carnegie Hall guy. All right, we're gonna have to. All right, but he's alive and he's playing. The current trumpet player.
The Kermit Ruffins?
No. Hold on. Hold on. We can do all this.
Dizzy Gillespie?
Not alive. Okay. Not alive.
I can't think of that many.
Yeah. Shit. All right, forget it. Anyway, it's not Chris Bodie. It's a black dude. Oh, Wynton Marsalis. You know that guy, right? Wynton Marsalis?
I've heard the name, I think.
Okay. He's like the guy. He's a trumpet player. He's like won like a Nobel Peace Prize for his freaking trumpet playing. That's how good he is.
Wow.
He's phenomenal. This guy. I don't know if that's what he won, but it's something like that. He won a Pulitzer. I don't know, but he won something that wasn't music, but it was because he's such a good trumpet player. But he was on Bill Maher's show, and he was Real Time or whatever, and he was talking about heroin and how a lot of these guys, and Bill Maher was basically debating him, where it was just like, obviously marijuana and heroin and all these things kind of made these artists better, or more inspired or whatnot. And he disagreed with it totally. He was just like, he goes, I would love to have seen somebody like Coltrane not on drugs. I would love to have seen somebody, because there were so many of these guys that like, because there was always that rumor, you know, because people say shit like you're too old to do art, or you know, you can't do drugs, and you can't be sober and do art or whatever. People always say stuff, and it's like, you know, I think it goes against, you know, what could probably be without, you know, it's like you don't have to be high to do good stuff. And I don't know, I just think it's an interesting thing. But then you listen to grunge music and you're like, oh, okay, heroin definitely helps. But
yeah, well, it's interesting because I was just watching the Coltrane documentary, and they, you know, he was I forget which band it was. I don't think it was the Miles Davis band, but there was a band that he got fired from. Maybe it was Dizzy Gillespie.
Maybe, yeah.
It was him and some other guy. They got caught doing heroin, and they got fired from the band. And it's like, you know, it held him back in a way, but then he was able to kind of find his path once he was like, because I think the other guy got fired, and they gave him another chance, and then he got fired a couple months later for heroin again, and then he was like on this path towards like, you know, doing all this stuff that we know about now. So it's kind of complicated because it's like, yeah, he was getting fired and whatever, but he was still finding his way, and who knows where he would have been without the drugs. Maybe he would have been better, maybe he wouldn't have. But
I don't know. It's interesting that art is always, you know, we idolize people that do drugs, you know, that are artists, but it's like we don't idolize other people that do drugs that are like politicians or, you know, school teachers. You know, it's like there's people like, if you're an artist and you do drugs, you're like, this guy's the best. But if you're an artist and, you know, you do drugs and, you know, you just do something that's not in the arts, then it's like, you know, it's a weird thing to fall into. We'll make a statue out of you if you play guitar. But
if you're a bartender and you do it, doesn't help you make the drinks. Nobody cares about the bartender who's high.
Right.
The horrible tag. All right, so everybody knows bartenders have the drugs. Come on, Anthony.
Yeah, but not heroin. Well, maybe they do.
Go to Seattle. That's where
accountant. Let's try it again with accountant.
Right. No, I'm not giving it to you.
Registered nurse.
Doctor.
Booth operator. What?
Doctor. You know how many doctors are on? You know how many doctors are on cocaine just because they got to stay awake? There's quite a few, actually.
Everybody on drugs all the time. Pilots. Ooh. Yeah, pilots. All
right. Here's another random pool.
This is crazy. I was watching the ZZ Top documentary last night. I was watching it last night.
You're watching a lot of documentaries. Whose password did you have? All right, so Anthony's getting in it. I love this album. This is such a, you know, this is definitely brings me back as a kid as well. This is when ZZ Top has always been this amazing Dallas blues band. And, you know, I love the early ZZ Top stuff. You know, it's definitely a little bit better, I guess, like far as like kind of like the way we were talking last week about the AC/DC album, where it's like, you know, more jammy and stuff like that. And it's like, and then I think ZZ Top said, look, you know, we want some commercial success. And so they found a way to do it with this particular album. And MTV was on the rise and everybody was watching music videos. And, you know, these big just dudes with long beards and bluesy looking dudes, not MTV looking guys for sure. But they found a way through this album, you know, really good songs. You know, there's some great songs on here. You know, Give Me All Your Lovin' is one of my favorites. You know, Legs, Sharp Dressed Man, you know, it's just solid songs. You know, Thug is great. I got the 6, all really good songs. And they made this album really tight, commercial. And the videos are great. They got these hot chicks getting out of this car, you know, and just like, you know, make them kind of funny and kind of more commercial to the younger people. But the music itself is just fantastic. And it's, you know, really good stuff. It's 3 guys making a whole lot of noise. And yeah, it's good stuff. Dusty Hill, I think, died last year, I think.
Last year.
But Billy Gibbons is the man. His solo work is great as well. But anyway, there's ZZ Top. And yeah, that's it. All right, everybody. Are you ready for the show? I'm ready. It's
I'm
very
ready.
exciting. Are you ready? How ready are you?
11.
Nice. How about you, Adam? What are you at? About a 6?
I think an 8. I'm at an 8.
Yeah, solid 8. Solid 8.
I'm about a 2. You guys are gonna have to carry me. All right. So once in a while, you have a band, and the band finds rhythm with each other, not only with the music but with relationships, and they gel and they create great music throughout the years, and they have several albums where they play together and they tour the world, and they're a band, and they everybody knows them as the band, and then once in a while people say, hey, I would like to branch off from this band and do something that's more my speed and more my style of music and something I want to say, without these guys holding me back, or without these guys. Maybe there is a good relationship. Sometimes people go off and do solo work and it's a good relationship. And sometimes they're like, fuck this guy. I hate my brother. I'm going to do my own thing, or whatever the case may be. So today's theme is artists going solo. And I think I understand it, because as a comedian, that's the best part, is that I don't have to rely on a drummer that hates my guts. You know what I mean? Like, I can just tell jokes without anybody, involved. And so I think I understand the intrigue of wanting to go solo. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to the solo bands and solo music, solo artists, I guess. And Anthony, so what do you got for us today with your solo artist?
All right, so I picked Scott Weiland, 12 Bar Blues, which was his first solo album. He was still in Stone Temple Pilots at the time. This came out, I believe it was 97. But it was after Tiny Music, Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop. It was during like Scott Weiland was being arrested for drugs like every couple of weeks. It seems like it was getting in the way of Stone Temple Pilots. I think they maybe canceled some tour dates, and I know that Scott Weiland was like in jail or rehab or both during like some of the, like he wasn't, they couldn't make proper music videos for some of the songs on Tiny Music. And this was around the time that he started working on his solo album, which was much more experimental. There's some kind of, there's like industrial stuff. He's doing like bossa nova kind of music. He's doing, there's a waltz on there, which is interesting. And that song is, was it Lady, Your Roof Brings Me Down, which is, it's like a waltz, and it has Sheryl Crow playing accordion on there. The big single was Barbarella, which is kind of like a David Bowie kind of thing. But I remember when this album came out, I loved it right away. I saw him live when he was touring on this album, and it was kind of like part of why I wanted to see him. I loved the album, but I wasn't sure that he was going to be alive too much longer. So when I saw him, and I was like, man, it's great. I'm glad I'm getting to see him live, because he's seems like he's in trouble. I don't know if, and he was, and he did eventually die from drugs, which is sad. I didn't want to see him go out like that, but he lasted longer than I thought he would, based on what was going on at this time. There's one song on the album, I think it's called The Date, which Scott Weiland plays all the instruments on it. And it's the sloppiest song because he's not a drummer, and there's some drums on there. But he's like, it's probably the most emotion and passion in any of the songs on this album. I think it was about his wife leaving him. And so... and then there's a song about his son on there, a young son. So anyway, and then the album cover is homage to this Coltrane album that I picked. So it's like pretty much the same kind of, uses the same font, and it's blue tinted photo, except it's Scott Weiland's face and not Coltrane's face. But but he used like this as a template. So that was what I picked. It's a experimental solo album from Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots fame.
So you thought that he was in trouble? Maybe you should have reached out. Maybe you should have. I'm saying, when people are in trouble, you should reach out.
I tried. I sent him a fax.
Did you?
It was the 90s, so I faxed him. But I didn't hear. Still waiting to get a fax.
Oh, fax machine. It's interesting because I feel like what happens in the drug culture of art is a lot, because I remember when I was on drugs and stuff, I would always reference people that were doing great art that were on drugs. And so I feel like, I'd be like, Sam Kinison did a lot of drugs, and, certain people I would just associate myself. Doug Stanhope would be drinking, and I would be like, yeah, these guys are doing great art, but they're drunk. And so it's interesting that he did a homage to Coltrane, who's on heroin. Yeah. And so I feel like it's this cycle of things where you're just like, oh, well, that guy, I mean, he's the greatest. And he's like, so it's interesting how when you're hurting and you're addicted, you're drawn to these guys that they kind of give you an excuse, you're just like, oh, well, I mean, you want to be a great artist, so it feeds it. But yeah, this is an album that makes you go, well, he needed the band, in my opinion. I mean,
yes.
Well, let me finish. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'll something now.
I feel like, I appreciate what he's doing. I appreciate, that he's being experimental, if you will, and he's really kind of, and it's definitely a personal piece, like you said. He's definitely doing some more heartfelt things because, it is about his wife and things like that. So I appreciate that. And I do appreciate he has the best voice in rock and roll. I mean, it's top 5 in my opinion. And it's such a perfect voice for it. His addiction almost makes you angry that we can't hear a new Scott Weiland song, even though Anthony doesn't believe old people should make art. I still feel I would love to hear him do something, in this time even. But yeah, this album is weird, man. It's like you start off, you're like, what am I listening to? Is it? And then sometimes it bleeds into something that sounds like Stone Temple Pilots, and then it'll kind of retract. Like it'll be like a chorus and yeah, here it is. And then it'll go off on some waltz or some weird shit. You're like, what's happening with this album? But you can't not like it because it's him. And you love him as an artist, as his voice, who, he is rock and roll. And you like it that he's doing some weird, goofy shit. And so I appreciated all that. But at the same time, I felt like, it doesn't compare, in my opinion, to the girth of those songs from Stone Temple Pilots. I just feel like they knew what to do with him. Even Slash knew what to do with him. There's certain people that really knew how to kind of put him at his best and let him peak and do that roar that he is. And I feel like this is kind of like a Pinkerton, if you will, experimental, let's just, a feeling thing. And the album I picked is very similar, where it's artists just want to, just kind of put it out there. And I think he definitely put it out there. Is this an album that I feel is best represents how good a singer he is? Probably not, but it is an interesting pick. And so that's just how I feel about it. What were you going to say, Anthony?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, so, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't say somebody should listen to this first. This is good if you're already a fan of Scott Weiland and what he did in Stone Temple Pilots. But I appreciate that he went so experimental with this solo album. And around this time, the rest of Stone Temple Pilots, they did an album as Talk Show is the band name, where they have a new singer. They had I forget what his name is, but he was the singer from a band called 10 Inch Men. And he became the singer of Talk Show. And it's essentially, even some of the songs were written during the, when they were writing for Tiny Music. So it's sort of, they were deciding what song was going to be on what project because they knew they were going to do something else. And to me, like the talk show album is fine, but it sounds too much like Stone Temple Pilots, but it's missing Scott Weiland's voice. They got somebody who's like almost like Scott Weiland. It's like what they're doing now with the new sing. Like they're still, and kind of what they did with Army of Anyone with the guy from Filter. It's like they are still doing Stone Temple Pilots, but without Scott Weiland's voice. It's just some magic that's missing. So with Scott Weiland, without the band, I'm glad that he was so different that you almost don't compare it as much, so that's what I appreciate about it.
No, I definitely see that. I just feel like, those songs are just so great, and the band was so tight. So it's like,
magic.
You just,
it was magic.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a band of people. I get mad when people like they bring up Nirvana and Pearl Jam and STP. Sometimes they even come up in the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I think they were such a great band. But his voice is magical, as you said. Adam, how do you feel about this album?
So first, I completely forgot about Talk Show, and
not bad, right? I mean,
yeah. But this album, I mean, this takes me back to college. I remember listening to this back then, so I think it was 98 when it came out, and and I always, I was a big Stone Temple Pilots fan. I always thought Tiny Gifts was or was it Tiny Music from the Vatican Gift Shop was one of their best, and I think that this album has those little fragments of Stone Temple Pilots. There's some songs like About Nothing, Where's the Man could have been Interstate Love Song. I mean, that's probably the song that I think is closest to STP, and that could have been something that could have been, I mean, I think that could have been big. I mean, it's really, I guess not, surprising, not too surprising that this didn't have any kind of commercial success. I mean, it had critical acclaim, but I think it was just a little bit too weird and a little bit too experimental. But especially something like Jimmy Was a Stimulator, which I could have seen that too as possibly an STP song off of Tiny Tiny Music or Divider. But yeah, I mean, this is probably the first time I listened to this since college, and I appreciated the experimental angle of it, and yeah, you could tell that Scott Weiland's maybe purposely kind of veering away from STP to create this kind of more honest or more like innovative kind of sound. But it's not, it's fascinating. It's kind of like a, it's not quite there, but it's but I thought, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're gonna enjoy just that it's him, and it throws you back too, It's like realize how important he was in music, and so it's like, it's like sometimes comics like we don't want to just tell jokes. We want to get up there and tell a story, and we just want to kind of be more personal and like, but we have to, you have to get the laughs all the time. So this is like his version of not going for the laughs. Like he's just like, he just do whatever the hell he wants. And so, but at the same time, it's like, there's obviously not a no person, I feel like, you need somebody like say what you want about Geffen and all that stuff. It's like, he knew how to be like, all right, man, let's cut this and put this here and whatever. So you definitely miss having a guy come in and do that when you have like a Rick Rubin and people making it tight and like, so it's like you have those masterminds, making music better because they have that insight and they know how to take the good and make it better or whatever. And then this is just one of those things where nobody's around, or it's just like, all right, do whatever you want. Somebody will buy it, because you're who you are. So I think there's a little bit of that, but there is some gems that I think I could comb through if I listen to it more. But just a quick listen is not what this album deserves. You kind of have you have to kind of get more into it. You got to feel it a little more. And then knowing that he's kind of on his way out even in life. And, it's probably going to bring it, a little more to light to why, one would like this album is if you're a fan of his, then, it's going to be, you're going to be more drawn to it. But yeah, was a cool pick, and I didn't even realize he was doing all this other stuff because I knew he was bouncing around to bands, and I knew that Velvet Revolver is one of my favorites, and I feel like I'm really disappointed that they didn't have more albums together because I think they sounded like STP, but then Slash made it Slash, so it kind of had its own thing going, and so I felt like it was the best for the departure of staying in rock but being similar, and so I really enjoyed Velvet Underground, which is a great album. It's very rare, so if you see that in a record store, please pick that up. That's worth a lot of money. So yeah, all right, I guess I'll go. I mean, I'm I'm in this I'm in this show. I'm in this show too,
Yeah,
it's not just you guys. So when I was in college, 1,000 years ago, I went to school in New York City, and that's the blessing of New York City is when I came to New York City, there was a thriving music scene that was happening. CBGB's was there, Continental was there, Coney Island High was there, all the record stores that meant something were there. All these things were happening, and so there was a lot of good sounds. Even some of the alternative radio stuff, even the mainstream radio stuff was playing. Kind of more alternative rock and things like that. And there's a little band that came out called Blur. Blur was this band that came out, and I remember I got this CD, and it I think I just got it because they did a Maggie May cover, and I was like, this is great. I love Maggie May. This band. But I remember they had some big hits on that album, and it was definitely, I just really kind of got into them, not religiously, but I thought it was, they were part of my collection. I thought they were a good band. I really enjoyed them. And then after that, Damon Albarn is who we're going to talk about today, is the front man of Blur and also Gorillaz, which I didn't get into, but I appreciate what that album is. Well, those albums are as well. Those are just, I can't even tell what that is. I think it's like, I don't know if I did the right drugs to really appreciate those albums, but I definitely feel it's, it's kind of DJ music, if you will. And so it's like intense kind of, in DJ stuff, but very instrumental and very, very innovative stuff. So Damon Albarn did this album, Everyday Robots is what we're going to talk about today, which is it's a phrase that's actually where we're headed as far as the artificial intelligence, where it's like everyday robots is kind of a thing where it's like Anthony and I were in the car the other day, and we saw like the Amazon thing just drive by, like the little cart. So I feel like it's robots are everywhere. Yeah. And so they're taking over everything. They're in our pocket. We're always on them. We're always looking. This is kind of a robotic thing that we're doing here. Yeah, we're streaming into people's lives. It's very Star Trek. We're definitely headed. So I do love that. And this is also another personal record. This is something that Damon Albarn wanted to do, kind of a personal record. It's produced by Richard Russell. Also, there's some great singers on this. Natasha Khan is on this. This is they have the Leantown Stone City Mission Choir, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album. It's when the choir comes in, really good stuff. Everyday Robots it's just a really cool kind of weird album. It's funny because it starts out really slow. Like you're like, what is happening right now? Like, am I depressed? Do I want to live? That's how slow these songs are. But and this is the thing with this album. I'd never listened to it before. I just wanted to cover it. So this is my first time kind of getting into it. I know you saw them live, Adam. You saw them live and everything. So that's it's great because you can pick up where I leave off. But what I enjoyed about this album, it reminded me, and I kind of want to go back with the Scott Weiland album. Sometimes I forget to listen to the lyrics because the music takes over, and I think a lot of times these albums are so good because lyrically they're so good. And like we just, when you hear a good song, you're like, this is a great song. It's got a good beat, everything. You don't think about what's being said. And the first track on this album, Everyday Robots, has some really great lyrics in it. I'm going to quote a couple of them. Says we're everyday robots on our phones, looking like standing stones out there on our own. We're everyday robots in control or in the process of being sold, driving in adjacent cars. If you press restart, they didn't know where they was going, but they were there and wasn't it. Everyday robots, touch thumbs, swimming in lingo, may become stricken in a status. One more vacancy for everyday robots getting old when our lips are cold, looking like standing stones. Little robots in ringback tones. You know what I mean? Like it's like such a kind of statement on where we are. This is in 2014, and we're way past that now. Where we're so addicted to technology, you can't do anything without them trying to like target an ad and we're obsessed with all these things, and we're just in this loop. It's hard to get out of it. I mean, the other day I tried to put my phone down, and I get probably like 15 minutes is as long as I could go, and I was like, I gotta see it again. So I love it that he kind of like tapped into that with this opening song. And this is a great album. One of my favorite songs is Mr. Timbo, which I think, my God, technology.
Yeah.
Everyday robots.
Well, it's perfect. Yeah.
Technology. Oh my gosh.
You want to pick up from Mr. Tembo?
Yeah. Okay. So one of my favorite songs on the album, Mr. Timbo. This is, that beautiful chorus choir comes in. It's probably one of the more upbeat songs on the album. Everything else is kind of more melodic and kind of introspective stuff, and it's all in there. But this kind of has some Pink Floyd kind of sounds to it. They're experimenting with the stuff, and this is definitely another thing where an artist is kind of just doing what the artist wants to do. Like they're not trying to make hits. I know this was a critical success in England and stuff. I don't know how popular it was here. But I feel like it was definitely one of those that everybody raved about. But yeah, Hollow Ponds is a great song. A Cheating Heart is such a great song on here. I love that song. I thought that was great. Very personal song. And then the last song I really enjoyed, Heavy Sea of Love. The second half of it was great. Another really cool chorus and stuff. But I just like the experimentation on this album. It's definitely a departure from, Blur and Gorillaz. It's definitely something that's, in the vein of, we're always going to keep bringing up Pinkerton, but, it just feels like it's just another artist kind of going down another road. And it's like really interesting, and actually has a brand new album. It just came out. There's a volume 1 and 2, so it's, I'm curious to get that one, but I wanted to kind of cover this one because I felt like this is the beginning of his solo stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of all over the place here, just because my technology is not the best, but everyday robots.
You got an every other day robot. Yep. That's the problem.
So Adam, I know you love this album?
Oh yeah,
you saw it live. So talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah. So so when this album came out, it quickly became one of my favorites of that year, which I think it was 2014 when it came out, and I mean, like, just like you said, I mean, a lot of it is the subject. I always enjoy this subject matter of technology kind of taking over our everyday lives. I mean, You have it in Radiohead's OK Computer, and I've been going back to Beck the Information, which that's a big part of that album. But yeah, I mean, this is, definitely different than, although actually he did have with the Gorillaz, he had an album right after Plastic Beach called The Fall that was just him with an iPad, and he was just basically created this entire album as he was touring America. And I think this has some similarities to it, and it's great to see him expand. I think this is a much better album than that one. But yeah, I did get to see him. I saw him perform at Governor's Ball, and I think, and I can't remember exactly. They put him up. It was either up against Jack White at the time or Outkast. But I was like, look, I got to see Damon Albarn. That was one of my favorite albums of the year. So I went to see him. He didn't really draw that big a crowd, but I thought he sounded great. got to get pretty close to the stage, and he also played a bunch of Gorilla songs. And I think I forget who he was joined by. Maybe it was De La Soul or somebody who happened to be at Governor's Ball at the same time. But yeah, I mean, this album, Lonely Press Play, I think is a fantastic song. Mr. Tembo is about an elephant. And definitely, as you said before, probably the most upbeat song on here. I always like The Selfish Giant and You and Me. And I mean, this is I think it's a fantastic album. I didn't realize that he had a new one out. I gotta check that out. But also, you know what, there was a bit of this in when you were talking about Blur before. What I think is a very underrated Blur album is Think Tank from 2004. And I think there's a little bit of Think Tank in this album too. I thought, you know, especially a little bit more electronic. That's another thing. I got to see them during that tour at Field Day Fest. And you know, that was another great concert experience.
Very cool. Yeah, it's definitely, this definitely more interested in the new album now because of this. And I think it's like, and so again, I kind of want to go back with Gorillaz. It's like, you know, what's I guess the first couple of albums, or is there like because I remember the first one was very popular.
Yeah, there's the self-titled, and there's Demon Days, and the one that I really like is Plastic Beach, which is the one that had Stylo, that had Melancholy Hill, that had there's so many great Rhinestone Eyes, a lot of great songs on that one.
Nice, very cool. Anthony, what do you think about this album?
I liked it. I'm a big Blur fan myself. I got into them around the time that Parklife came out. You know, the Girls and Boys was like a big MTV single. And you know, this dude, he's got like, I think he's got a great voice. You know, it's like interesting sounding. It's not even necessarily that he's like technically like such an amazing singer, but I love the sound of his voice. And I knew he had the new solo album, but I actually didn't know that he had been doing solo albums for this long. So this one I didn't know existed. And it's cool because it feels like it's not that similar, or it's not that dissimilar from like what Scott Weiland was trying to do on his solo. You know, it's like it's maybe more focused and more organized version of, like, Scott Weiland was a more like haphazard kind of frantic solo album, and this is like, seems like he had a plan, and but like kind of, you know, a little moody and different from, you know, not worried about it being like a rock album or like whatever Gorillaz, you know, like not keeping it, not having to make a party album or whatever. So I think it's I like it. It's I'm interested to check it out again and maybe dive into the other solo albums because I am a fan of his work. So I liked it.
Very cool. Yeah, it is interesting when, you know, you've already been successful and, you know, you don't have like your songs don't have to like pay the rent anymore. Like that's, you know, it's like you could just play around, you know, you could just like, you know, feel all the things you wanted to do, you could do now because, you know, your success and your hit, you know, you got Grammys or whatever, you know, all that stuff. So the music's always, it's interesting when people do these departures and kind of do these solo stuff because it's like, there's no pressure of the record labels. There's no, you know, you did it, you made it. And so now he could live off the money of Girls and Boys. You know what I mean? Like they could live off that, you know, Gorillaz, like those are very successful. You know, what's that? Psychotic was that Gorillaz song? I forget what it's called, but it's like one of them about psychotic or something. But it's like,
it's probably on the radio right now.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Right.
It's playing, right? He's getting paid for it right now. Somebody's listening.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, yes, he could do this broody, introspective thing, and you know, so it's interesting. It's like it's fun when artists get to do that. They get to finally breathe and play, and so it is. You know, it's kind of a cool thing. You know, that we get to listen and hear that. You know, kind of their home studio version of their music.
Home studio. Oh yes, the home studio. It's so glamorous.
least you got one. It's pretty nice. I just have a corner of my bedroom.
All right.
For you got your own room. I have a corner.
Room for it.
Yeah, he's got a break room with a trans Wonder Woman poster.
Knock off Wonder Woman.
Sorry, my iPhone fell. Very cool. All right, Adam, what did you bring us?
All right, so I'm sticking with the UK, and this is actually an artist that I wanted to bring to the show before. I don't know if you guys have heard of him or heard his music before, but so this is Frank Turner. He used to be a part of a British hardcore band called Million Dead, and so they had a couple albums. When they disbanded, he started up on this solo, this kind of solo career, where he was influenced by Springsteen and actually influenced by Nebraska.
What?
But it's kind of interesting because he, I was trying to decide which album of his to kind of bring into the show. I was thinking of Love Iron Song, which is much more acoustic album, but I thought this was a better representation. This is England Keep My Bones from I think it's 2011. And he's kind of like, in a way, like a Sturgill Simpson, where he's able to channel a whole bunch of different genres, or either on the same album or on different albums. So he'll go from Love Iron Song, where it's primarily mostly acoustic album, to his latest, which just came out, called Frank Turner Hardcore, which is more of a hardcore punk album. And right before that, he had a completely folk acoustic album called No Man's Land. It was more of a concept album. But here he's got a little bit of everything. And this is, he's a very prolific artist. I've seen him many times live, and I think it's one of the better live acts to see too. Everybody's, he's got so much energy. Everybody's into it. Everybody's singing. There's moshing too for some of these songs. But yeah, like I thought, like this album, it spans a bunch of different genres, starting with Eulogy, which references Freddie Mercury, and the same thing with the artists. Not everybody can be Freddie Mercury. And actually, Freddie Mercury is another. He's covered Queen a few times in his shows too. There's the more optimistic, upbeat Peggy Sang the Blues, kind of inspirational song. And then one of my favorites to see live too, is I Still Believe, which is just about the power of rock and roll. How rock and roll can save us all. It's a great live song to see. And then he goes, like, he'll go from something, this big rock song like I Still Believe, to something smaller like Rivers, with it more folky. And that's the thing about his music, is that there's a lot of English folk in it, but there's also Americana that's kind of mixed in there. You have it again with English Curse, which is just an a cappella British folk song. And then you go right from this a cappella song into One Foot Before the Other, which is just flat out a punk hardcore song. And that's the thing. That's the whole album. Just kind of, you'll just, it'll turn on the dime pretty much. And, you have slower songs like Redemption or Night Becomes Days. One of my favorites on here is I Am Disappeared, where he references Dylan, and it's just such a great song. And then he ends the album with Glory Hallelujah, which is this big kind of gospel atheist song, which is pretty fascinating. It's a fun song to hear in concert. But like, even like in his shows, like I said before, there's moshing where like you could go from this slow acoustic ballad, and the next song he's playing with just such fury, and it's such a fun show, fun artist to see live. And he usually, I've seen him, like, he even on the same tour, he'll jump back and forth between playing a solo show or having a backing band with him. His backing band's called the Sleeping Souls, and a lot of times when he has the backing band, he'll take these slower songs and just speed them up. But it's this is a fun album. I think it's, and definitely worth checking out live.
Yeah, I never heard of this guy, and I haven't heard of this band, and I very very much enjoyed this album. I did think that was amazing because the acapella song was phenomenal, and then it would just kind of branch into another song. It's so good, man. I feel like this guy is super, super talented, and I get mad at myself when I hear something so good and I don't know who they are, and I'm like, God, how did I miss this? Right. But it's like, I guess it happens. You miss good people. There's a lot of great artists that don't get just the play they deserve because there's so limited places where there's platforms for people like this. But that was great. I thought it was just like, this is more my speed. Not to shit on your boy Springsteen, but this is kind of where my sound buds get delighted, when it's a guy that's doing different things. He's bringing punk. It's not the same, because Springsteen, it's very similar to what the next, it's a hometown song. It's similar sound, but this guy's going all over the place. And I love that in an artist that can take you somewhere acoustic and then take you somewhere punk and then go a cappella and then go gospel at the end with an atheist theme. I love that song. That was great. And it's just like, because he was pretty much, hey, it's cool. We can relax now because there's no God, like I love all that lyrical stuff too. It was really a lot of fun. But yeah, this guy's fantastic. So please get me more of this guy. I want to hear that. I want the band. I want the solo stuff. I think it's so good, man. I was very excited for it.
Yeah, I'd recommend definitely checking out Love Iron Song, which was 2 albums before this one. And then the one right after this is really great, Tape Deck Heart. So there's and he's always, during the pandemic, he was doing live streams almost daily where he was just doing full albums, just him acoustic. And a lot of them were to benefit smaller indie venues all around England and the US. Fantastic. So it was great. He's got a great relationship with his fans. He's one of those guys where you can send him an email and he'll respond.
That's great. Wow. I love that.
I got a photo with him. I got to see him at and I've seen him a bunch of times, but I got to see him at St. Vitus in Brooklyn. So it's interesting because there's this. It's I don't know if you guys ever went there, but it's more of like a metal bar, and here he is playing just acoustic, but to an entire packed room. Like right afterwards, I stuck around at the bar area for a while and saw him coming up. I came over. I usually never ask for a photo, and I was just like, Frank, be cool if I get a photo with you. And he looks at my shirt. I had a Hold Steady shirt on. He goes, "You got a Hold Steady shirt on?" Of course I will.
But
I wish I had the photo with me on. It's a great one. But yeah, he's a very charismatic artist. He's got so much energy on stage too, and he puts everything into like every single show that he plays.
It's great. It's great. He emails people back. I'm a fan of Anthony's, but sometimes he doesn't text me back. So, so I got to be a fan of this guy. Just sending an email. I was going, Anthony, how'd you feel about Mr. Frank Turner? It was fun. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I liked it. I was not aware of him or the band that he was in. I checked out a little of the band, not much. I just wanted to skim through to see what the sound was, but this is really cool. This album had kind of had some kind of anti-folk, punk folk sort of vibes, which I like. Reminded me at some points of like AJJ a little bit to me. That group. Is it a group? Is it one guy?
AJJ?
Yeah. They used to be called Andrew Jackson.
Oh, Andrew Jackson Jihad?
Yeah.
Was that the...
But it reminded me of that kind of style a little bit, that like, it's like acoustic punk, and I liked it. It was pretty cool. I would check this out again. I didn't know it was influenced by Springsteen. So
stop it.
Well, I think
that ruins it a little bit.
Shut up.
Yeah. I like it. I thought it was pretty cool. And I had never even heard of him before, which is surprising. But
so one of his first albums is called Campfire. I think it's called Campfire Punk Rock, which I think is pretty apt and a good description for kind of his sound.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. Campfire Punk Rock. That's great. Very cool. All right. Great pick. Thank you for introducing. Whoa, there we go.
Yeah.
Introducing new artists to us as my phone falls because I wasn't ready. Very cool. So we're going to close it out with another 5 albums from the top 100 list.
Oh yeah,
and so
Sound top 100.
Yeah, and
What is it?
so we're gonna start with a album that actually just, I think it was last week, they just announced a sequel album to it, and that's number 84, Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Great album.
yeah, great album.
And I feel that that's an album that's grown more in appreciation over the years too. I mean, that was an album that I feel like everybody had, and you saw that album in every single used CD bin, and now I think it's kind of catching on more to maybe a newer generation.
Yeah, well, they're touring again, right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. It's interesting. It's not an album that I thought needed a sequel since it's so long. I thought they could just leave it at that. Leave it at the 2 discs.
Well, isn't every follow-up album, I guess, a sequel? I don't know. I mean, every Led Zeppelin album feels like a sequel. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I guess it's still the same. I don't even understand that. Are they doing the same subject matter? Is that what they're doing? They're like taking same songs and prolonging it? I don't understand. Like, I don't know. Can you really do a sequel on an album? I think it's just it's just another album. I mean, but I guess you can. I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing, like Metallica kept doing sequels to the Unforgiven, to that one song. They had Unforgiven on the Black Album. They had Unforgiven 2 on Reload, I think, and then they did Unforgiven 3, I think. They just keep doing that one song over and over again. I don't know why.
I think it's just a marketing trick, you know. I don't know. It's like, oh, it's a sequel. You know, just to give it. If you like this album, you'll like this one. Just say, hey, man, just call it Same Sound. How about that?
I think they just did a double album too right before this that everybody hated. I feel like they did. Smashing Pumpkins, yeah.
I mean, their new stuff I think it's hit or miss.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're cool. Like I love that rat in the cage line. You know, they're good.
Yeah.
I said a rat in a cage.
All right, so we got number 83, The Pretenders.
Okay.
Good band.
Yeah, I like The Pretenders. I don't know any of the full albums, but I like what I've heard.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much. Who's the lead singer again? What's her name?
Chrissy Hynde.
Chrissy Hynde. I didn't realize how involved she was with the Sex Pistols. You know, watching a little bit of that show, I realized that she was around that time, and I had no idea. That was pretty cool.
I didn't either. I didn't know she was even there for any of it.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so for number 82, this was actually one of the albums I was going to pick for this week. Peter Gabriel, So.
Oh, okay. Does that have Sledgehammer?
Yep.
That's a good.
Yeah, there was Sledgehammer, Big Time, Red Rain, In Your Eyes. It's a fantastic album.
Sledgehammer, that's one of the greatest videos of all time.
Oh yeah,
it's so cool.
Yeah.
I still love watching that video now.
Yeah, I'd like to see it now.
Amazing video.
Just thinking about it, I'd love to see it again. So cool.
Yeah,
like a big deal.
Number 81, Adele, 21.
Okay.
That's Anthony's favorite.
I got what? Oh, because it's 21.
No, because it's Adele.
Oh, the only thing I have against Adele is that she like jumped the line to get her records manufactured for a lot of indie artists. So because artists like her wanted their records first, a lot of indie artists had to wait like over a year to get their pressings done. And I don't think she needed to do that because she's huge. She
should have just opened her own record company, her own manufacturing company, and just pumped them out. Yeah.
But other than that, I got nothing really against her other than that.
All right. That first big hit I liked. That's about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I always thought she was kind of bland.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, that first song was good, and then it's like, all right, get over your ex, you know?
Right.
Oh,
she did like 3 albums on that.
God, jeez.
All right, so we got number 80, Erykah Badu, Badoism.
I
Okay.
have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know
Anthony?
the album. I mean, I know who she is, but she's an artist that I respect, but I really don't listen to much of her stuff. That's it. That's all I have on her.
All right. We got one more or what?
Yeah, we'll do one more. We got number
Okay.
79, The Police, Synchronicity.
Okay. And that well, is that the first? That's not the first one, is it?
No, that was
The first one.
the double album.
Don't stand so close to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. As the Police go on, I like them less and less.
I hate the Police. I can't listen to any. Every time a Police song comes on, I would rather get pulled over by the police. I can't take it. I don't want. I encourage it because then I can turn the radio down. But yeah, I can't do it. I don't know. I just can't do Sting. I can't do. I don't know. They were pretty good. I mean, they had like, as far as that music of the '80s, they were definitely.
Yeah.
You know, it was cool stuff. I mean, they were making cool music, but I just can't get into it, man. I don't know. I like that Stalker song a little bit, but that's about it.
Every Breath You Take.
Yeah. I'm watching you. Okay, easy, Tiger. Jeez. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening and watching our crazy show, Dustin's Vinyl, with my buddies. Oh, my earphones went out. See, this is the kind of show we have. Improvise technology. So thank you so much. Listen to us on all your podcast platforms and YouTube. Follow us. Thank you. Support Record Stores. Bye-bye.